Another guest here with me in the journey of entrepreneurship.
The illusion of security in corporate America baffles me.
When you're not in the right environment, you feel broken and you feel like something's wrong. That's not necessarily true.
My parents let us borrow $5,000. We paid that back eventually.
You're down one day, you're through the roof the next, and you have to ride the wave.
For me, success is being happy, being content.
I can leave, I can close my calendar for the day, go do something with my children.
If you want it bad enough, you can do it.
This is a game I'm in. This is the game.
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the very first episode of the Jobs to Journey podcast. You're going to get used to seeing me. I'm your host, Chris Mouzon, again, coming to you talking all things money and financial. But the reason why we started this podcast as on episode 1, I feel like it's important to share this with you. The reason why we started this podcast is because throughout the journey of entrepreneurship, throughout the time that we've been able to mentor and coach and help people down their financial life, we always come across people that want to experience life on the entrepreneurial side of things. And we talk to them about going from the job to the entrepreneur journey. We talk to them about going from the employee mindset to the entrepreneur mindset. And so we figured there's no better way than just let's start some, let's create some content around what it takes to go from a job to becoming an entrepreneur. There's a bunch of people that have different viewpoints of it. But what we're going to do on this show, on this podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to start bringing on some people that have successfully gone from the the employee mindset to the entrepreneur mindset. They've transitioned themselves from a job into the entrepreneur journey, and we're going to highlight those people for you. We're going to share their stories. We're going to get a chance to, ask them questions and find out what are the intangibles, what are the things that they had to overcome in order to get to this life. There's so many people that say, I'm not satisfied with my job. My job isn't fulfilling. It's not helping me get to the life that I want. But also, I've never been taught the skills or the mindset to be able to go and build something for myself. I don't know how to pick an industry. I don't know how to sell. I don't know marketing. I'm not familiar with any of these things. So we're gonna highlight on this on this podcast specifically. We're gonna start highlighting the people that have done that and that are continuing to do that. It's a never-ending journey. Hence why we call the podcast Jobs to Journey. Because it never stops when you're growing yourself and growing a business. But that's why we are now starting this podcast, is to help those of you that want to be able to transition from a job into the entrepreneur life. We're going to give you some tools and some tips and some keys. And most importantly, you're just going to have some stories of people that you probably relate to. These are people that maybe sound like you, look like you, come from similar backgrounds as you, but have also been able to transition. So that's why we're doing it today. I'm super excited to get a chance to bring on my very first guest for the show. It's a person that's near and dear to my heart. And we've been on the journey for a while together. But I'm so proud of her and look up to her in her mindset and the ways that she thinks about business. And but yet she's come from the same places that we've come from, in that employee mind and working the job. And now she gets a chance to flourish here as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. And so I'm going to take some time to bring up none other than the very special Miss Zahraa Mouzon. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks, baby. Can I call you baby?
I don't know. I thought we were not going to go that direction, but sure. This is my wife, and it's been a pleasure to be in business with her for, going on, 12, 13 years now. We've been rocking and rolling in business together as entrepreneurs, have been blessed to not have a job, still able to take care of a family. She takes care of the household. She takes care of my mother. She takes care of our daughter. She does a lot of the things behind the scenes that sometimes people don't get a chance to see. And I'm super grateful and appreciative of it. and that there was no one more fitting to kick off the podcast with than the one I get to see every day operate in this journey of entrepreneurship. So again, babe, let's just take a couple minutes, introduce yourself. Obviously, they know your name, but talk a little bit about kind of where you started in your work world, because that's what the podcast is for. Talk a little bit about how you grew up, where you started, and from a mindset of working, and then I'll start to dive in and ask you a few questions.
Okay. So I was taught, what most of us have been taught, go to school, get a job, get a degree, get a job. So that's exactly what I did. Went to Milton Hershey School, a boarding school, got a full ride scholarship where I did my bachelor's at Johnson & Wales, studied business management and marketing. I went on and got a master's in healthcare administration, thinking I was going to climb up that corporate ladder in the healthcare field. My very first job, I was 14 and it was at Wendy's.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my very first experience actually working on a W-2. Had several jobs, obviously, since then, from working in hotels, working in restaurants, went off to college. While I was in college, in my third year of college, I started working in hospitals, which was really what I wanted to do. That was the path I wanted to take. Right after college, I was working at the hospital. I got recruited into a pharmaceutical sales position with Forest Pharmaceuticals, which was out of Florida. They had several locations, but I was recruited while I was in Florida. So I did pharmaceutical sales for about a year and a half or so. I got my first master's in healthcare administration, like I said, and then I went on and got another master's in adult education, thinking, the more education, the more degrees I had, the more valuable I'd be in corporate America, which wasn't the case. In 2008, I was laid off. As we all know, the economy took a huge downfall then. So I was laid off with about 60 other people. So that was a huge waker-upper for me. And that was the first time I thought, you know what, I don't know that I want to continue this path of corporate America and climbing up the corporate ladder. Felt like the rug was just swept from underneath me, and it was a shock. I wasn't really prepared for something like that. No one had explained being laid off and how things like that could happen. So that was a big shock. It was very uncomfortable, pretty humiliating the way that it happened for all of us that were being laid off. So that experience was what changed the entire trajectory of the path I was then going to take, which what shot me into entrepreneurship at that point. That was in 2008.
Wow, that's good. So again, this is good to understand for a lot of people, because there's a lot of people going through these layoffs right now, currently in our society, right? Ton of people getting laid off. A ton of people have that uncertainty of being at a job and not knowing if they're going to have a job the next day or the next week, whatever the case is. But that was the catalyst for you to get you now to become an entrepreneur. Before that time, right? Again, kind of growing up similarly to most people, go to school, get some higher education, get a job. Did you ever see yourself? Did you have entrepreneurial tendencies as a child? Was there anything in your childhood that you thought like, no, I would probably do this outside of the programming?
None whatsoever. Absolutely none, which is funny because my dad was an entrepreneur. My dad owned a cigarette shop. He, worked in gas stations. So he was an entrepreneur most of his life, but I didn't know my dad. I didn't spend any of my childhood or upbringing with my dad, but it was somewhere in our bloodline, I guess. But my goal and everything I was taught and everything I wanted was corporate America, climbing up that ladder. I envisioned myself as an executive in the healthcare field. Once I was recruited into pharmaceutical sales, it was exciting. I thought, man, I could absolutely climb up this ladder. And I loved it. I was good at it. I liked the sales position. So I had absolutely no inkling whatsoever that I was going to get into entrepreneurship in my 20s.
So you get fired. you see, or you get laid off, you see a bunch of other people get laid off, it literally changes how you think about work, right? It changes how you think about your life. Even after getting laid off, did you ever think that you might still go back to a job? Was climbing the corporate ladder still something that you thought you might want to do eventually, or was it from that point on like full entrepreneurship?
Yeah, from that point on, I was completely disgusted with corporate America and how they would chew you up and spit you out and have zero remorse for it. I was young at that point. I was in my early 20s, so it was easier for me to bounce back if I decided to stay in corporate America and try again. But I was lucky enough, and I say lucky because I was able to see other people being laid off in their 50s. And they weren't so lucky to be able to bounce back and be hired by then another company, that late in their life. As we all know, corporate America is not very inclined to, hire people who are in their 50s and expecting a higher salary, because that's what they were used to in the 30 or 20 or 40 years that they were working with at another company before they were laid off. So most companies are looking for the younger people straight out of post-secondary education who are willing to take a lower salary. So I was able to see that devastation and to see, what that did to them. And also the way that they did it, we had absolutely no forewarning. We went in like a normal day of work. We started our job just like we do on a normal day. And,
Sure.
They called us up in groups into human resources. They gave us an envelope, and that envelope, it said very clearly that your position is no longer available here. And you have about 30 minutes to collect your things and leave the building. And they walked you out with security there watching while you go to your desk and collect your things. And, just the way that it was done was with absolute coldness and humiliation. And that completely turned me off to corporate America. And especially after I had spent so much time and money and energy in getting this education, and going that route as like we were taught,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How old were you when this happened?
I think I was like 23 or something like that. It happened in '08. So I'm 40 now. You do the math. I'm not good at this kind of math. So
Oh man, yes. You would have technically been you're born in 84, 08. You've been 24. You're going on 24 years old. There we go.
Yeah.
24. And so you had this happen a little bit earlier in life than most, right? Because a lot of people don't experience that type of stuff. It's funny because I was having a conversation with a client of ours, a friend of ours, and he kind of went through the same experience in his early mid 20s, where he just got laid off, and then he said it put him in a little bit of a depression, and he didn't really understand like kind of how to bounce back and what to do. And so this is a very real scenario for a lot of people that this happens to. And so as soon as now you see this, it's kind of the way that corporate America works, this is this could potentially happen to you down the line. What was your next steps? Like, how did you then break into your next phase of work?
Well, I mean, I was so confused walking out of there, and I felt like I did something wrong. I felt like something was wrong with me, even though I was one of their best salespeople. I just couldn't imagine something like that happening in the way that they did it. So at that time, my older brother was a big mentor for me. So he was the first phone call I made. And I told him exactly what happened. And he said, well, yeah, that's, you got laid off. And that's what happens in corporate America sometimes, especially if the economy takes a huge hit. But don't worry, you could bounce back. You're young. And I told him, I don't think I want to ever experience this again. Like, could this happen again when I'm 40 or 50 like these people? And he said, yeah, that's the risk you take in corporate America, unless you want to be in like a union. Otherwise, you're going to have to start a business. If you don't want this to happen again, you're going to have to own your future, own your income. So that was like the first light bulb that went off for me, was like, can I be a business owner? And at the time, he said, well, you have nothing in Florida there for you now. Come out to California. My brother was already a business owner. He said he'd love for me to partner up with him, and we could, get his business going together. And I thought, you know what? Absolutely. That's a great idea. And that's what I did. I packed up my stuff and I moved out to California, and My brother had a distribution company that he had already started. So we partnered up, and that was, the rest is history.
Yeah. I think that's a good takeaway for anybody that again, this podcast is meant for people that are, again, maybe want to get into entrepreneurship. They want to transition into the journey, but they don't know how to start or how to think about it or what to do. And I think one of the big points that, you might have just settled on was the fact that you had somebody that was already an entrepreneur and somebody that was a semi mentor to you, right? Be it family, that then planted that seed to say, hey, yes, this could happen again. The solution is you need to own a business. If you don't want this to happen, then you got to go own a business. And I don't think enough people that are in jobs, that are working, that are a little bit dissatisfied, I don't know that they have the right people around them to plant that seed and say, hey, if you don't want this to happen, then you got to come to this side.
Right.
Most people's advice is, oh, well, look for this job, or this job, you'll always have a job, or this career, it'll pay you way better and you'll get to do this. They just keep pointing them in the direction of other jobs and other industries that'll actually do the exact same things for them. And I think that part of you having somebody like your brother in your life that's like, yeah, well, if you don't want that to happen, then you got to come to the other side. And that's what raised your awareness. So I think that's a huge point for people to understand is you got to get around the right people.
Absolutely.
Right? You got to get around the people that can actually give you some of that insight that's going to help you transition into the entrepreneur life, right?
Right. Because that's what most people will do. They'll just go back and repeat the same cycle, because they don't really know anything else, or are unsure if they can even start a business, or have never, that idea has never come to their mind, or a lot of times people are doubtful that they can start a business. That's not the path that they were ever taught. So they'll just repeat the same cycle. And that's like the definition of insanity. You just keep repeating the same thing, expecting a different outcome, but you're still susceptible to the same thing happening again.
Exactly. So that's good. Again, good for people to understand if you do want to transition into that side. Now you're working with your brother. Now you're fully in the self-employed entrepreneurial side of things. Granted, you didn't have to start that business from scratch, but again, you came in to be able to help partner and build it up and get it to where it's successful, and which I know you guys did. Tell me some mindset shifts. Tell me some habit shifts. Tell me like the early stages of that side. How did you have to think about it differently? It's a lot different from having a boss than to having to, work with your brother or manage your time. So what were some of the shifts that were happening during that time, if you can reflect on it?
Yeah, there were huge shifts. And a lot of it was the shift of holding yourself accountable as opposed to someone else holding you accountable, like a boss, like a schedule, like, hey, if you don't come in, you'll be fired and you won't have a paycheck. Now you have to be the one to be able to hold yourself accountable. There is nobody saying, hey, you have to come in. This is your schedule. Now you have no check that's waiting on you,
right.
If you come in or not. So you have to be the one saying, I'm going to make my own schedule and I'm going to work hard and I'm going to hold myself accountable to doing work today. The other shift was, a lot of times people think, oh, I'll go into business ownership, I'll probably work less. Absolutely not. You're going to work probably double the hours that you just came from at a job. We're used to working like between the 40 and 60 hours at a job, depending on, what kind of demand your job has for you. But when you're running a business, and especially when you're self-employed, you're looking at 80 hours a week minimum, especially as you're trying to build up that company and maintain that company, depending on the industry you're in. So it was nothing like, 60 hours. And no, it was minimum 80 hours. We were working 90 hours a week most of the time. So that was a huge shift for me, was I don't have a lot of time to myself anymore, where like you clock in, you clock out, you go home, you have some time to yourself, your mind is now off the job. It's not like that in entrepreneurship. Your mind is always on the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a huge point. Again, right? People don't understand sometimes when you bounce off to this side of the entrepreneur journey, it's more work than being at a job, right? It's more time, it's more energy, it's more focus, like it's more. And so I get this more pressure, right? Again, a lot of those things. And so again, just good for people to understand that. Like, I would always tell people that sometimes people think that, like, oh, I don't like working at a job, so I'll go be an entrepreneur. And typically that's not the way it works. Typically the best entrepreneurs are the people that were the best employees. They worked the hardest. They stayed late. They showed up early. They did more work. Like, those are the best employees become the best entrepreneurs. They just realize at some point, I could do this for myself instead of doing it for the company. It's not a matter of, well, I never showed up on time to work and I didn't like my boss, and therefore I need to start my own business. I can never work for anyone. No, that's normally not the way to get there. Normally it's like you're just working so much for someone else that you realized, if I work the same 80 hours a week, instead of being salaried and only getting paid for 55 hours, I'll work the same 70 or 80 for myself to grow something that I know will have more benefit for me down the line. It's never less work. It's just you're working for yourself. It's more work. So I'm glad you made that point, because I don't think a lot of people understand that sometimes. They think that it's less work on this side. Now, eventually it can get to less work. Eventually, potentially, you have some more freedom. That's not for a long time. It's not for a long time when you're running the business. So what were some of the challenges as you're running the business, as you're now in the throes of it, the 90 hours a week, the 100 hours a week? I'll ask both sides of the question. What were some of the challenges, like some of the real, like, tough parts? And then also, what were some of the good parts of it, if you take us to both sides?
Yeah. I think some of the challenges were just learning as you go. There's no blueprint. When you're starting a business and trying to maintain a successful business, there's no blueprint. Depending on the industry you're in, especially, we were in distribution. So we were creating products and then branding them, marketing them, and distributing them in different distribution channels. So there is no blueprint for that. There is no system in place for you, like at a job. You come in, this is your job description, you follow the blueprint, and it's all kind of done for you already, and you just come in and do your role. In a business setting, when you're an entrepreneur, you're the one creating that blueprint. And that blueprint is forever changing and evolving, because you have competition, you have the changing laws, the changing industry. There's so many different factors that come in that change the way you need to be doing business to stay successful. So you're constantly learning as you go. And that's another reason why I also, during my entrepreneurial journey, was like, why did I get all this schooling? Like, there's nothing in entrepreneurship that you could just go read in a book and be like, oh, this is everything I learned in school. Let me just go apply it. Most of the stuff you learn in school, hardly any of it is really used in entrepreneurship, especially in this day and age, because everything has changed, especially since COVID. Everything has changed. The way we market changed, the way we advertise changed, the way we communicate with our end client changed, our distribution channels changed. There's so many things that have evolved, since the traditional curriculums of post-secondary school. So it's a very much learn as you go process. And by learn as you go, that really means fail as you go. Fail, try again, get up, try again until successful. So you really have to create such a sense of like resilience, and I'm not going to give up attitude, and I'm going to embrace the struggles, and I'm going to embrace the failures, because I know this is going to get me to the next level of where I'm learning from these things to chisel myself to get better. So that, I would say, was one of the biggest challenges is learning as you go and being okay with that.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. What about on the other side? What were some of the wins, the positives, the things that probably people think a lot about, that they see, even if they're real or not real, but like what were some of the good parts of it?
For sure, entrepreneurship will enhance your character. It will it will define you. It will break you down first. And if you allow it, if you don't quit, if you keep on trying, it will then build you back up. And it builds such a sense of discipline and character within you, a high effort and high integrity type of character, which isn't always available at the job setting, you know? So that was a huge thing for me, because I saw my character changing over time. I saw my brother's character changing over time. And that was, I really enjoyed that part, because I was embracing that, and I was seeing how I was growing in so many different areas of my mindset. And then the other thing is, when you do become a successful business owner and you are able to start to employ others, and you're able to start having employees, and you start to see how you're changing the lives of these employees, and you're becoming a mentor to them, and you're giving them opportunity, that part is priceless. I think that's probably my favorite thing about entrepreneurship. And I think anybody who gets into entrepreneurship should strive to get big enough to be able to have employees, because just one life changed is worth it.
That's huge. The fulfillment of entrepreneurship doesn't get spoken about enough. It's often that we glamorize it by time freedom or financial freedom, independence, and, you know, cars and houses and money and those types of things. But again, the ability to change one's life by something you've created, right? By something that you've put together, to be able to now give someone a job, to be able to enrich someone's mindset, right? Like, there's so many benefits to that side. That again, these are the reasons why you should want to get on the entrepreneurial journey. It's going to be challenges in everything. We often say, right? Choose your hard. Choose your hard, right? It's hard to have a job for 40 years of your life. It's hard to be an entrepreneur for 30 years of your life, 40 years of your life. It's hard, right? Like, just, you got to choose your hard. But some of these things of the fulfillment, the character building, right? Those things are the rewards that at the end of the day, you might not be able to say that at your job. You might not be able to say that your job made you a better human being, that your job fulfilled you and gave you more of an ability to impact your community or your world or people around you. You might not be able to say that, but you, for sure, you build the right businesses, you absolutely will be able to say those things. And those are some of the takeaways, right? Those are some of the takeaways. So
it's funny, as an entrepreneur, you know, when you are responsible for generating your own paycheck, for generating your own livelihood and lifestyle, it's very difficult to be able to explain that, and what that does for your confidence and your self-esteem and your belief in yourself. And there's no way to achieve that in corporate America, because your check is always coming from some other entity. You know, if I do this job, if I keep coming in, if I'm qualified enough for this job description, I'll get this paycheck. But in entrepreneurship, you are the one who it's all on you. You know, we have a saying that says, if it is to be, it's up to me. And there's no other feeling than actually the pressure of that. And then the work ethic it takes, and then to actually achieve that, and then to continue to achieve that over and over. That's the other thing about entrepreneurship. Just because you're successful doesn't mean you're going to stay successful. Right. Entrepreneurship is an everlasting journey. You know, just like you can get laid off in a job, your business can plummet from one day to the next, depending on, you know, what type of business, what industry. COVID came and wiped out so many businesses, so many corporate businesses came and wiped it out. So you have to have like this constant belief in yourself that if it is to be, it's up to me, and I can do it, and I will do it. And there's really no other feeling than feeling that over and over and over again, proving it to yourself through your work ethic and not giving up.
Again, great points, right? Those are great points. We all know people that have gotten laid off, and people that have businesses that have failed because of things that are outside of their control. The difference is, when you are an entrepreneur, you have the ability. There's some businesses that flourished in the pandemic. There's some businesses, because the business owner had the mindset of, man, we need to pivot. If it is to be, it's up to me. Okay, I got to make this thing happen. Okay, what else do we need to do? A lot of restaurants, they were the hardest hit, right? Because people can't now come sit down. Okay, let's pivot to go. Okay, let's put it in the freezer. Okay, let's do delivery more. Okay, we got to pivot. We got to figure out how to maneuver so that we can, right, get to that life. And then there's other business owners that didn't pivot, and they were just like, when is this going to stop? And their businesses failed, right, and crumbled. So at the end of the day, it really matters the mindset of the entrepreneur, the mindset of anybody in business, right? That will be one of the determining factors.
And really, the only way to get through that is to embrace the challenges. It is not to kind of like your fuel tank gets empty over time and it's like, oh God, I thought I was over with all this. No, like that's the beauty and the pain of entrepreneurship. It's you've got to completely embrace the fact that there are going to be challenges and look forward to those challenges and train your mind to say, the more challenges I have, the more character I'm building, the more discipline I'm building, the more I'm going to evolve, the more I'm going to see that next level of myself that I didn't know existed had I not had these new challenges that came my way.
That's right. That's right. So that's good. Now that you've transitioned, just taking you down your story, now that you've transitioned, and now we're here in the financial space, right? We've been in business together, like I said at the beginning of this, going on 13 years now here in business together. What were the transitions like? I always remember Robert Kiyosaki would always say, your first business is often not your best business, right? Your first business isn't your best business. So you get a chance to start your business, right? You get a chance to start a business with your brother, right? And really build that out. And then eventually you transition out, and now we're here in business together on the financial side. What were some of those transitions like? How did you have to think about this industry differently? When people go from one business to the next, like, how do you know when it's time? There's a bunch of questions in there, but just kind of take me through some of that.
Yeah. So that transition was your fault. You convinced me that you wanted us to have a business together. So, which of course, I wanted that same vision. So, but you birthed that dream. So that's why I transitioned from working with my brother in distribution to now getting into business with you in the financial industry. But really, I was reluctant. I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, but in the beginning I was very reluctant because, again, I was like, well, this is successful, and I don't want to start again, and I'm already doing so great here, so that was that, like, not wanting to start again, and like, but again, back to embracing the challenges, so but that was the beginning of that transition. But I knew at that point, if I am going to transition into a different industry or a different business, with you, my husband, I needed to make sure that my income wasn't going to take too much of a hit, because of course we've established ourselves. I've made other investments with the money we were making in the distribution company. I wanted to be able to maintain those investments so that I had to make a sound decision of where we were going to go next. But in entrepreneurship, I think your foundation has got to be your faith, not just faith in yourself, but faith in a higher power. Because when you have that faith, more opportunity comes your way because you're praying for it. You're asking for it. You're looking for it. You're waiting for it to come because you've been praying for it. And that's what we were doing. And guess what? That came, you were recruited by someone in the financial industry. We had not even thought about the financial industry. We were just kind of waiting for the opportunity to show itself, and it did. But that transition, I think, was a big mindset shift for me because as an entrepreneur in the distribution company, we had, like 30 employees, and I had to take a lot of like management approach with them because you're managing so many people. You're giving them that paycheck. There is a job description that you want them to fulfill. So it very much is more managerial. Whereas in the industry we're in now, we take much more of a leadership approach because we don't employ people. People that we work with are not on a W-2. like they were in the distribution company. Here, they're on a 1099. It's completely up to them if they work. There's zero obligation. So it's a different way of motivating and encouraging and inspiring people in leadership than it is with management. So I had to first make that shift, and that was difficult for me because I was taking a lot of what I learned in college, what I learned in the distribution company, and trying to apply those same things here, and it wasn't working. So I had to relook at everything and say, how can I inspire other people to work? And work not for me, but for themselves. Work not for a paycheck I'm going to give them, but work for a paycheck I'm going to teach them how to generate for themselves. So that was the first mindset shift I had to make. And then also I had to realize that here in this industry, we were lucky enough that I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. You know, we were placed in an industry where there was a system, like a blueprint that was already created, very much like a franchise system that was already there for us. We just had to come in and run it. So I had to transition. I kept trying to reinvent the wheel myself, because that's the other thing. As an entrepreneur, you kind of get egotistical, you know, like, oh, I can do it. I can do anything, you know, it's mine. And I had to let go of that and say, it's already been created and the wheel is good. Let me just implement it. So that was a big mindset shift for me, because I'm very much, I can do it myself. I can reinvent it. I can come up with it. And then that's the other thing as an entrepreneur, especially a small business owner, you think you can do it all yourself, but you are better off delegating tasks. That's why it's so important to hire people and build your team out. So that way you can grow to the next level, because you can't do everything on your own. So really moving from management style to leadership style was the biggest transition, I think, mentally. And then just not allowing myself to keep trying to invent the wheel and just learn how to run a system that's already successful.
That's so good. That's so good. I hear some things that, again, people can take from this. If you are trying to transition into the entrepreneur life, you're trying to get the skill sets and mindsets of how to go off and build this life for yourself. A couple things that Zahraa just mentioned: the difference between management and leadership. Two completely different things, right? Your ability at your job to be over somebody by title, because that's all it is, right? You're a manager by title, not because they want to follow you, not because you're good at what you do, but because you got that promotion and that's your title. It's completely different than being a leader and being in leadership, where you're guiding people. Like you said, we have a volunteer army on this side, right? Even if you built a business where you do have employees, there's still a level of leadership, because it's your company that you're building. It's not just I'm overseeing these tasks or these roles. You hire a manager, but you will be the leader always, right? And so understanding those differences, big differences when it comes to entrepreneurship, right? And then again, learning how to build a system, or learning how to take a part of a system. Something that you said that I always tell people: business is a team sport. Business is a team sport. I know we come into life with the self-employed mindset. It's very similar to the employee mindset, right? I'm good at this. These are my skills. This is what I can do, right? Very much so the I mentality. But when you want to build something big, it's the we mentality. It's the team mentality. Business and life are team sports. And this is why sometimes when we talk, we don't talk badly about school, but we say, hey, maybe school is giving your children a mindset that isn't preparing them for entrepreneurship. I heard Robert Kiyosaki's wife, say this, is like, school has all the traits of keeping you away from entrepreneurship, right? Sit down and don't speak. Don't share answers, right? Like, don't copy off of anyone on the test, right? Like, you're here from this time to this time. Like, there's just certain mindsets that get instilled in children just because they go through the education system. And so these are some keys in business when you want to step into the entrepreneurial side of things and go down this journey of entrepreneurship. So as we wrap up, babe, because this has been really good stuff, and I know people have already taken a bunch from this first episode. one or two tips for people if they are at a job right now, but they have that desire. Maybe they haven't been laid off yet. Maybe they have been, and they have that desire to just want to get to the entrepreneurial side of things. What might be one or two things you could give them to get themselves started in the process of thinking about their entrepreneur journey?
I'd say the number one thing is get yourself a mentor, get out of your own head. If you are looking into entrepreneurship, go find an entrepreneur that you can talk to, someone that's seen some success, someone that can pour into you and, guide you and help you. That's number one. Like you said, business is a team sport. Life is a team sport.
Right.
If we are not actively seeking out mentorship, it's very difficult to get through life on your own and using your own skills and mentality and resources. You've got to really expand yourself. And that's by seeking mentorship, seeking people that are above you, that have been through that path, who can help you navigate the path that you're about to take. That's similar to the one that they just took. So I'd say definitely seek out mentorship, have them, guide you down that path, ask them all the questions and share your doubts with them. And number two, it's just start. So many people think, oh, I got to get ready. I'm not ready. I got to get this ready. I got to be 100% ready to do it. 20% of something is better than 0%. And you've got to just start somewhere. You're never going to be 100% ready. There is never a time you're just going to be 100% ready. You've just got to start, and you cannot be afraid to fail. Like I said, you got to embrace those challenges. It is a good thing if you fail, because that's going to open up so much more insight to you that you would not have known had you not tried and failed. So seek out mentorship and don't be scared to start and fail.
Such wise, sage advice for anybody going along this journey of entrepreneurship. So, babe, thank you for doing this episode number 1. It wasn't like I had to pull teeth, but we did have to coordinate schedules a little bit and make sure that you're available. So I thank you for taking the time out. For everybody that's listening, go follow Zahraa on all platforms. She's at Zahraa Mouzon on Facebook and Instagram, here on LinkedIn. We happen to share a YouTube channel together with our business, United Agency. So you can feel free to check her out there. Any parting words, any final things you want to leave to the people? I think you've done a great job.
Thank you. No, I think that's pretty much covers it. If I were to leave them with anything, it's be resourceful. Don't doubt yourself, believe in yourself. Everything starts with your belief, and actively work on your mindset. That's what's going to help you start and finish well and maintain. It's going to be your mindset. So you got to be constantly feeding yourself with the things that are going to be empowering you to get ready for that entrepreneurial journey.
So good. So good. Well, again, for everybody that's listening, continue to take time to think about the things that Zahraa just spoke on, some of the things that maybe you can start applying in your life and be able to help you transition to that entrepreneur journey. So, babe, thanks for taking the time. I'm going to sign off with everybody else, but I'm going to get you off out of here because I know you have stuff to go do. Thank you again for taking the time and joining us here on the Jobs to Journey podcast.
Make sure if you guys need any insurance, retirement planning, budgeting, financial strategizing, that is what Chris and I do. So make sure you guys reach out to us. Don't be afraid. Use us as your resources.
That's right. All right, babe. Thanks for taking the time.
Welcome, baby.
All right, y'all. One episode down of the Jobs to Journey podcast. Again, we're bringing this to you so that you can get the insight from people that have gone from the employee world into the entrepreneur world. I'm going to take this question here. Alex asked this question: what's the best game business to start? I think he said, what's the best business to start? So Alex, this is a question that we often get a lot, is what are the best businesses to start? here on LinkedIn and on YouTube. If you go back, you'll see maybe about, I don't know, 2 months ago from the time of recording this, I have an episode of Biz Buzz Live. It was right at the beginning of the year, in the beginning, probably January 1st, 2nd or 3rd week of January. One of the episodes I did were the 10 best businesses to start in 2025. So go back, take a look. It's on our YouTube under Biz Buzz Live. You can go back if you're here on LinkedIn. You can go back about 2 months back and take a look at those. We read a list of the top 10 businesses to start in 2025. So that may be a place to start. But here's the answer that I'll give you, because many people have this question. The best business to start is going to be a business that, one, has a supply and demand arbitrage, meaning there's not a lot of people supplying it, and it's a huge demand, meaning there's a need for it. Need-based businesses are some of the best businesses to be able to start. And then secondly, you're going to want to figure out your skill sets, the things that you're good at. Oftentimes, I would tell people to think about a couple different things. Number one, what are you good at? Number two, where's there a need? What's the white space? What does your community need? What do people need? And then also, what do you like doing? Outside of what you like doing, you got to figure out what makes money. There's some businesses that just don't make money. There's some business models that don't make money. You have to be aware of the ones that do make money. And then if you can start to figure out what you're good at, that means naturally you'll want to keep working at it. Typically, the things that we're good at, we do more of, right? Typically, that's the way it goes. If you're good at, playing basketball, you probably want to play basketball a lot. Whether you like it or not, you're just good at it. And so you want to find some businesses that you're good at. You want to figure out where's there a need, because need-based businesses are going to be the best for you. Probably want to figure out also what you like doing, because you don't want to be miserable forever doing a business, right? And so these are just some ideas, but you can't really answer that question. That's like asking for blanket financial advice. But there are some resources out there if you want to figure out what are some of the best businesses to start. It's probably the businesses that are low overhead or low startup or don't require a lot of people or don't require a lot of moving parts. These are all the ideas you want to start thinking about, but you can find a niche doing anything. There's stories of people that have built businesses with just a hot dog cart, right? And they make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just by selling hot dogs. There's people that go out and they clean, trash cans in their community, and they make tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars that they build out. But at the end of the day, you need to figure out where's their supply and demand arbitrage, right? Where's there a low supply and a huge demand? What businesses are out there that make money? What are you good at doing? Because if you're not good at it and there's a huge learning curve for you learning how to do something, it's going to be really, really difficult for you to be able to make that happen. But those are just some ideas. And then, like I said, go back in, take a listen to our old Biz Buzz Live back in the beginning of this year, where we talked about the 10 best businesses. I think also the following episode, I talked about the 10 worst businesses to start in 2025. So you can go back, take a listen to those, and they should be able to help you out. Again, thank you, everybody, for joining us for the first episode of the Jobs to Journey podcast. A lot more entrepreneurs coming up. This is just the beginning. A lot more stories to tell, a lot more resources to give you so that you can take yourself from the job into the entrepreneurial journey. Until next time, take care.